Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Ask Sam. I haven't heard a better name yet, so we're gonna stick with Ask Sam for now. And this episode is all about the music business, the music industry. On my Instagram stories, I've asked you to ask me some questions about the music biz. If you want to become, a DJ like me or an artist, you're struggling, you have questions. And so many people did, so I'm going to be answering them right now in this little video. So first question from Rick7 from Bangladesh. He's asking, can anyone join the big music labels? I think so. There's been, enormous successes from anywhere around the world on big music labels. But right now with the algorithms of Spotify, other DSPs, I don't believe you necessarily need a big label to get started. There's plenty of services like TuneCore that allow you to upload your own music directly to Spotify. Plus, through the artist.spotify.com website, you can also pitch it to their editors. What I can say though is that it's easier to get signed and noticed by a big label when you already have some success. So try to build up your listeners profile, the amount of monthly listeners that you have on all the DSPs first before approaching a big label, because they will definitely show more interest in you then. One thing that does really work as well is networking, asking your DJ friends, other artists that have got signed already for their contacts in the music industry and the label managers / A&Rs that you want to approach and sign to. And then question number 2, which is kind of like a follow-up question to question 1, Lunatics Music is asking, how do I promote my music to get more streams? So you can get streams in multiple ways. One big way is playlists. So one thing that is critical is always to pitch your songs to the DSPs like Spotify on time. So make sure you log into artist.spotify.com at least 1 week in advance before your release, but preferably maybe even more in advance, like a couple weeks, to make sure that the editors have enough time to check out your release. Then as an add-on to that, it helps to know the people that curate the playlists. It can be contacts within Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, but it could also be just people that have big playlists themselves, other labels, YouTube channels, stuff like that. So it really helps to find out who's in charge of running those specific playlists. Pitch your songs to them. They have lots of websites where you can submit your demos, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll add your song to the playlist. Another thing that really helps is collaborating with other, maybe bigger artists that already have a streaming profile. For example, if you only have 10,000 listeners a month on Spotify, but you're collaborating with an artist that has 100,000, all these 100,000 people that don't listen to you yet will hear your new song. So that opens up a whole new market and listenership for you. And then once you get those streams, obviously you're making money. You're getting royalties, you're getting paid, and that's part of the question. Number 3, he's asking, how does royalties work? Is there a set percentage for each individual work on a track? So yeah, most of the times before you put a record out on a label, you agree on specific royalty splits. So that's the percentage of all the money that someone or the label is getting. That comes in from Spotify at the top, but then it gets split between a label part usually and an artist part. Labels can take up to 90% of your royalties depending on how big of an artist you are and how much money they're going to invest in you as an artist, thus have to make back. I would say the usual royalty splits for a beginning artist are 70% for the label and 30% for the artist. Once you grow bigger, you can of course negotiate that again. So after the label takes its share of the top, there's an artist share left that's divided between all the different artists on a track. Usually before you release a track, you get an agreement from the label stating the different royalty splits. It can be, 25, 25, 25, 25 if you're working with 4 artists, or it could be different splits depending on the size of the artist and the contribution that they've made to the track. It is up to you or your manager to negotiate these royalties with the label and the other artists involved in the track. But before you get any royalties, before you can release your music, obviously you have to make your music. And that's where the question of Bilia Belin, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, comes in. He's asking, how can I improve my performance when producing? So in the future, I'll be making a whole video of Ask Sam only about producing, but I will answer this question really briefly. For me, it's all about the starting point. I'm really bad with just sitting in front of my PC, looking at a blank screen of Fruity Loops, FL Studio, and then just getting started. I always need a starting point for my productions, and usually that is a strong vocal, a sample, or just an idea that I have. But for me, working with strong vocals, awesome songwriters, has greatly improved my productivity in the studio. So now a more generic question by David Dexy. He's asking, what's your advice on getting signed, create a fan base, and play big festivals? I would say it all starts with good music. I used to focus a lot on getting gigs, getting deals, stuff like that before I actually had hits. And what I've seen that, and I'm still telling myself, is that once you create the good music, once you get that going, the rest will follow by itself. If you focus too much on getting bookings, on getting all the other stuff without actually producing and releasing good music, it's all in vain usually. And while this might sound harder than the other way, it's actually much easier to improve your productions, work with better vocalists and songwriters, and improve your streams and your radio airplay, and then go for the bookings. Then another quick note on creating a fan base. I think it's super important that you own your fan base. That's also why I created Fangage.com, which allows any artist to easily create a fan platform for themselves. With Fangage, you can basically create a fan hub where you can put on all your content, you can connect with your fans one-on-one and also collect their data so you can stay in touch with them directly, circumventing the algorithms of Facebook and Instagram. So please don't focus only on getting more followers on Instagram or maybe on TikTok, because they are all third-party platforms. It's better to focus on something that you can control and that will always be yours even when the third-party platforms disappear. For example, what happened with MySpace. On to the next question now. This one is by DJ Almighty1 on Instagram. He's asking, what's the procedure to release a remix of a famous track without any issues? I would say starting up as a producer, it's super helpful to make remixes, bootlegs and edits of already famous songs, or just songs that you simply like and you can add your twist to, because it's much easier to get into that process than to create a brand new song from scratch. How this process of making a cover and releasing it properly usually works is with a bootleg. So you first make an ID, you rip the song and you make your own version of it. You can get an a cappella from somewhere, you can sample the original master, it doesn't matter as long as you keep it on your own PC. Once you have the creative concept and the idea for the song, usually your publisher can help you get those vocals cleared. You can either clear just the publishing and get a resong, so get a different vocalist on it so you're not using the master, or you can get something called master clearance, where the original artist allows you to use the original master of the song. If you're interested in that, make sure you get yourself a publisher that can help you with clearing those samples and songs. Then another question by this guy called Sakalands3. He's asking how to reach or ask other artists for collaboration. This is something that I do a lot, but how to approach this really depends on the artist and the size. Sometimes I just simply send them a DM on Instagram or a message on Twitter, but even an established artist doesn't always get a reply and might end up in the other's DM folder, so the artist doesn't see it. Another way to go about it is simply emailing their management. If you go to an artist's Facebook account or Twitter, you might find an email address there that you can reach out to. And if you're still not getting a response from that, you might have to get creative, find out who their booking agent is, their publisher, and contact them. Obviously, it always helps if you have a good song or a good song idea to get noticed by those bigger artists that you want to collaborate with. So then the final question here that I'm going to answer in this episode of Ask Sam is by Castello Music. He's asking, digital streams versus DJ support, what can build an EDM artist's career more effectively? I think right now streaming is more important. The reason for that is that due to Corona there aren't any live shows. The only way DJs can actually support each other is either through streaming on playlists and also their radio shows, which makes it much more interesting right now to focus on tracks that will be playlisted and will be streamed. When the festivals do start to come back, it might be different, especially depending on the genre that you're making. When you're making heavy genres like EDM, hardstyle, hardcore, I think DJ support is something that you cannot miss. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Ask Sam about the music industry right now. If you have any more questions, make sure you drop them in the comments. Let me know, I'll try to answer every single one of them. And as always, stay tuned for the next edition of Ask Sam. Ciao, ciao.